get on Twitter. Let's see what toxicity is on Twitter today.
Why was she flirting with him? Maybe she shouldn't have been flirting with him. You should have been more careful. You shouldn't have been drinking. Why were you drinking? Maybe you brought this on yourself. Well, what was she wearing? Well, she is pretty, so it's kind of expected. Why didn't you tell him that you had a boyfriend? I don't know. I just need more evidence.
What's not clicking? How are y'all confused? What's not clicking?
For nothing. Being a part of the Empire will make Earth better than it ever was.
And what if they resist?
That's why we're here. To keep them from resisting. To show them how wrong they are. How pointless it is. That they can be a part of something bigger. Or die.
I won't let you.
Wanna die for this planet? Fine! What's 17 more years? I can always start again.
Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Autumn. If you don't know who I am, I make videos about whatever I feel like making. And today the conversation is going to be a little bit more serious than I usually like to get. Usually I give advice about stuff or I talk about like real stuff going on in my life. But today we're going to talk about consent, since it seems that a lot of people aren't really understanding consent and what it is and what it is not. And I have done a little bit of research, so I'm not a scholar. I mean, I have some degrees, but I'm not in school no more. So if you want to do research on your own, please go do your own research. I'm just trying to give the bare minimum examples and explanations of what stuff is, because clearly y'all not understanding, and I don't get it. I don't get why it's so hard to grasp. So yes, I am here to explain a little bit about what consent is and what it is not, so that we can have a more open conversation about this stuff later on down the line. So the definition of consent is permission for something to happen or an agreement to do something. And the key word in that is agreement. It has to be a mutual thing. Consent has to be given for both parties, or however many parties are involved. I was doing a little bit of digging, and I think that a lot of people have concerns on consent because it's so unclear, I guess. And I will say this before I get into like the information that I found online. Consent is up to, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, consent is up to the individual. Consent looks different depending on who you're dealing with. So if you have a partner, have an open conversation with that person about what is okay, what's not okay. This all boils down to communication. I was doing some research and I came across a book called Rape. It's a think piece about consent by Catherine McKinnon, and she had a quote in one of her chapters about consent, and it says, So I think that the key word in that is control. I think that a lot of the discourse and issues in the community, like in the world, is that what this means to somebody doesn't mean that to another person, which is why I said an individual conversation needs to be had, because there is no technical blanket idea of consent when it comes to people, because everyone's individual. Some people like pepperoni on their pizza, some people like pineapple on their pizza. Some people don't think that pizza is pizza, because if you think about Italians, that's not pizza to them. So it's the same concept when it comes to consent. So I was looking on the Planned Parenthood website, and there is a concept called FRIES, and I'll put it down here or wherever. So just to give an example, FRIES stands for freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. Freely given is without pressure and without influence. So, for example, if you are drinking, that's not freely given. The influence is alcohol. If you are asking your partner over and over and over and over again to like engage with them, that's not freely given, it's pressure. Reversible is that you can change your mind at any time when it comes to consent. Even if you are mid in there, you can change your mind. Men and women can change their mind and decide to take away consent at any time. I know that this seems like a really messed up concept for some of us. Any moment, consent can be reversed. And if I'm not comfortable, then I'm not going to do something. And I think that with reversing consent, there needs to be another conversation that is held that is a little more common about understanding, like, I know that a lot of times, your partner might get mad because you're already doing something and you take away consent and you say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Or let's say you're getting hot and heavy and you're kissing someone and they think that, okay, we're kissing, this is going to lead to something else. And then you're just like, hey, sorry, I don't want to do that. A lot of times people get angry because they have to cut themselves, they have to hold themselves back. I think that we need to have a conversation to why anger is the first response. And I think that what I have to show later will explain why that is so common. So the next thing is informed, and that is that you need to know the full story of the events and everything that's going on. If you're saying that you're going to have a sexual encounter with someone and they say that they're going to include a condom, and then you find out later that a condom was not included, that's not consent. That is informed. Every party needs to be informed of like what's going to happen and what's going to be included. If you're with someone and it's just the two of you guys, and then all of a sudden a third person walks in, there needs to be a conversation about that. Everyone needs to be informed of everything that's going to happen. The second thing, the E, is enthusiastic. Only do what you want to do. So, for example, a lot of people online during the specific situation were talking about like, oh, well, this person flirted with that other person. Yeah, but flirting doesn't mean that I have to engage in sexual intercourse with you. Flirting and kissing and stuff doesn't mean that I have to do X, Y, Z. And then the last thing is being specific. Saying yes to one thing doesn't mean yes to all. And that goes back to what I was saying before. If you're with one person and they invite another person in, just because you said yes to them doesn't mean you have to say yes to that situation. So in my opinion, also what consent is not, and this is just coming from a female standpoint because I'm a woman, consent is not what somebody is wearing, how they're treating you, how they are acting. Consent is a yes. And whether that is a yes verbally or a yes like you guys have had a conversation and you know that this specific word means yes to this person, then it's a yes. Everything else is a no. You should treat it that way, that everything else is a no. Honestly, unless you get on the same page with whoever it is that you're going to be with, it's safe to assume that it's a no until you get a yes. Just because there's too many issues out there where somebody could get hurt. This is destroying people's lives and we're joking about it. Like, come on. I was doing a little more research, a little more digging, and I found a TED Talk by a guy named Nathaniel Cole. And Nathaniel Cole is a researcher who does workshop facilitating with young boys, trying to explain to them what consent is. And he's like a writer and everything. He's very well versed in the idea and the concept of consent. Teach them when they're young what consent is and what consent isn't, and to have a broader, more thought out conversation about consent. So I'm going to insert a video clip from his TED Talk that you can find on YouTube. I will link it down below if you want to watch the whole thing, but just a few things that I wanted to pull out.
Really frustrating because boys don't know where to go, who to follow and who to listen to. And they see their heroes rightly have their character called into question. Whether it's people that are athletes, businessmen, musicians, the stories are often reported as hearsay. And when their character's called into question, boys would rather listen to what their heroes have said rather than someone else. And we have to get them to understand that actually there's more to these stories. If you're just showing it in one way, then you're only going to think one way about it. This movement is really important for us because it challenges the patriarchy and it challenges men that hold those positions of power that say you must be strong and rich and famous, which is what a lot of people aspire to be like. But most importantly, it asks men to be better. But the boys, if they challenge all of this and they still want to be like their heroes, they just accept it, that maybe if I get famous, I might have these like false charges against me one day. And that's what happens when the stories are reported in the wrong way. And it's easier to accept that and adopt those views when you think less of women and survivors of sexual assault.
So throughout Nathaniel's TED Talk, he explains that there are certain things that we have to talk about now at like when kids are young, male and female kids, when they're really young. And I think that he's saying that a lot of these children question every story, which is true. You should question everything. But there's also a really big rise in incels because of that constant questioning. Their heroes are being challenged and they don't like that. And so they take what they want from the situation and they take what they want in life and they think that that's how you're supposed to do life. Masculinity, hyper masculinity is to be strong, take what you want, you know, grab yourself by the bootstraps and do the damn thing, right? I mean, America, aren't we teaching men this? Yes, we do. We teach men this all the time. So when it comes to women's bodies and we are objectified, there is no conversation to children about how that is not masculinity. No one ever talks about that. But Nathaniel makes it known that these kids need to be shown another way. The conversation, we can change the conversation when they're young so that stuff like this does not happen in the future. This also allows us to like further increase the cracks in the performance and the ideas of hypermasculinity. That is why consent is so hard to grasp for people. He also mentions at the end that we need healthy communication between partners. A sexual encounter is not a one-way street. It's two people involved together. And if we have a genuine conversation about what is expected, what is consent, what do we want out of it, then the main goal should not just be to have sex. The main goal is to connect with someone. And I think when we start to teach children that, we can change the narrative of consent, of rape, and I think that we can change that idea so that there's less of that and more connecting. Because in all honesty, what rape truly is a grasp of power over one other person. He makes a really good point in his TED Talk. Like I said, watch the whole thing if you are really interested in it. Like it. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is accountability. Another thing that happens, especially in this area of life, is that people are not held accountable once they are once the consent has been disrupted. Probably hold that person accountable. And a lot of times when women don't come out, well, when women and others don't come out, it's because they know that the person that did it to them isn't going to be held accountable. That person should be held accountable by the justice system, by their friends, and by their family. As far as my thoughts when it comes to the situation that happened, I don't think this is a black community situation, because every community has its flaws. It's not a black community thing. It's not a black anime community thing. It's a human issue with human beings, no matter the color. And I think that we need to look at it that way. No community is perfect, and with even just the tiniest bit of knowledge that you might have gotten from my video or somebody else's video or a research paper, that is going to change tremendously. And I'm mostly talking to like men, because I don't see a whole lot of cases where the woman is the aggressor. Although there are, trust me, there are. I think that for men, educating yourself instead of questioning everything that you come across is probably a lot better to do than just assuming that the person is lying, or that the person, there's not enough evidence or whatever. Oh, she's crying wolf. I think that when we understand the idea of consent, then we can understand the idea that like that's a human being that's life was changed because of the actions of another human being. And if we break it down that way, I feel like all this other stuff, all this other nonsensical, oh well, there wasn't enough evidence, that enough is a call for change. Get out there and read a book about it instead of being an incel and being overly critical of people who are being hurt. Get out there and read a book about it. And I think that when we as humans understand that consent is a healthy conversation, it's not about one person, it's about both people or however many people are involved, and it's a continuous conversation, not just a one-off and done, because consent can change. Partners that have been together forever can withdraw consent. Like consent is, it's like money, you can take it back. So I think that when we have an open conversation about that, then maybe we could, really dig in there and fix some stuff. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's basically all my little research about consent. I am not a scholar. I'm not one of those like think piece people out there that do all this research, because that's not my job. The internet is infinite. You guys can get on Google and Google stuff, like just like I did. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this. I know this conversation was really deep. Let's all take a deep breath. I know, I'm sorry. But it has to be said. It has to be a conversation that we have. And if I lose followers because of this, then goodbye. See you later. I don't need you here. Because we don't have enough conversations about this, and I think that we should. But anyway, thank you guys so much for sitting here and listening to me rant about how people are dumb. Yeah, if you got anything from this video and you want to have a conversation, a healthy conversation, don't come in these comments talking all that crazy mess. I'm not here for it. Go ahead and comment down below. I know that there are a lot of people out there who are survivors of sexual assault. You guys gotta hang in there. Like, we get through this together. Just a little shameless plug. I have been reading this book here called Strength for Today by Maya Makeda. And it's been helping me get through a lot of the stuff mentally. This is a good book for you. It's not just about, you know, God. If you don't do the whole God thing, it is a good way to have like an affirmation to get you through and have strength for today. So I will put the Amazon link in the description. The book is not that expensive. It's like 20 bucks and it's a pretty decent read. I've been reading it for about a few days and I really like it, and it just seems to like fall so far in line with, you know, with this. So I mean, hey, check her out. Also, I will link some pages down below for those of us that want to go online and do some research, and for those of you guys that want to reach out to somebody about this. You want to speak up. Don't let these people online push you from not speaking up. You do that for yourself and for nobody else other than yourself. But yes, I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I don't want this video to be too long. So, yep, we're gonna leave. Bye, guys.